Welcome back to the School Hour CEO podcast. Of course, I am your host, Danielle Gray, and joining me today is my friend and a past client and amazing powerhouse coach for divorced women, Katie. Thank you so much for being here.
I am so delighted, excited, like all of the things to be here with you today.
Oh man, this is going to be so good. Katie is someone who brings hope, healing, and real talk to women navigating new beginnings, not just in divorce, but in huge shifts. I mean, if you're in entrepreneurship, which chances are you're listening to the podcast, so you know that with entrepreneurship comes a lot of shifts of the identity. We've got some dark nights of the soul involved, right? There's a lot of things that come up. So Katie is, like I said, she's a powerhouse coach for divorced women. She's a confidence rebuilder and a co-author of the best-selling book, Start Up, Start Over, Just Start. With 18 years of leadership at a major airline and a life coaching certification, she helps women go from heartbreak to wholeness using her proven 90-day blueprint. She's a mentor, a mom, and a believer in bold new beginnings. So get ready to be inspired by today's episode.
Danielle, I'm so excited to be here with you. And, I don't know how other women are, but it feels different when somebody is reading about you. It's like sometimes you just need to be reminded of all of those things, right?
We do need to be reminded of those things. And you're not the only one. I did an intro for another guest episode or two ago, and I got done reading and she was like, wow, thank you so much. And I said, we forget, I think, let's just go off on a tangent for a second. I think the problem is we get so wrapped up in the things that feel natural to us is part of the problem. And the second part of the problem is, as moms, divorced or not, we have a lot of things on our plate. We have a lot of things on our mind, and we don't have, well, I was going to say we don't have time. We always have time for the things we prioritize, but we don't allow ourselves the space to sit and just kind of bask in how amazing we are. And I know that sounds a little bit egotistical and but the thing is, we need to remind ourselves constantly how far we've come and all the things that we've overcome and all the things we've been through and how that set us up for who we are today. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's a good place to start. So take us back. So what inspired you to create the butterfly blueprint? I'm sorry, I messed it up. The Butterfly Tribe Blueprint. And how did your own story of divorce shape the work that you do today?
So in 2017, I was 7 months pregnant with my daughter, and I lost my grandmother. Mm. In 2018, it's weird for me to say that still because it seems so close, but yet it seems so crazy because I lost my father. Almost, it was 11 months later. Not even 11 months. It was like 11 months and 3 weeks or something since my grandmother passed. And that was my mom's mom. And then my mom and our family loses my father the next year. And then you fast forward to 2020. I don't need to remind people because if you were alive in 2020, you know what was going on.
Right.
But I lost my sister to brain cancer in 2020. And I thought, okay, we're kind of done here. We're going to move on. I wasn't quite ready. And I don't think you ever are, whether it's a death in the family or I think we should get divorced and moved into separate places. That hit me on a whole different level than dealing with physical death.
Right.
There was so much pain, anguish. Okay, now what? I'll never forget that first night away from my daughter. She was 4 then. Mm-hmm. I felt like somebody punched me in the stomach.
I can imagine.
And then it was like, okay, Katie, you have 2 choices. She is looking at you. You can either stay in that pit of despair, or you can make choices that start moving you forward. Mm-hmm. So out of all of these life happenings is the Butterfly Tribe Blueprint was born. And the butterfly is for the transformation. The tribe is for surrounding ourselves with others who are supportive. And sometimes that does not include who you think it would include.
Yes. Yes. This is important to note right here. This is important. Yes.
Because sometimes I was riddled with fear, guilt, shame, because, you know, my parents had been married 40 plus years, you know, people in my family were, all, you know, all of this. And it was like, you know what? At some point you had to come let it go. And that's where the blueprint side of it comes, because in my journey, that is taking all of those steps, putting them together and creating something that can get you from that pit of despair to walking into a room confidently, to having people smile at you, or you smile at people and then they wonder, like, what that is? Like, there's just something different about her. What is that? And am I saying that that is a perfect transition, that it happened overnight? No. I mean, Danielle knows, because there were many tears shared together in, yes. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to figure that out? And I am in such an amazing place right now. Like, my daughter went to her little summer camp this morning and she was like, okay, she had her little stuffy. And this is the beauty of building your own business too, is she has her stuffy. Like, I don't keep my business a secret from her, but I also don't let it control my time.
Right.
And
that's so important.
We set very specific time together, but she goes today and she's like, okay, I know that you have to do a podcast and I know that you have a training class after that and you'll be here to get me between this time and this time. You know, so we are that example to our children.
Yes.
You know, and I know that you've had several instances like that too, where it's like, when you get to the point where you can spend time with your child and not feel guilty about, oh, I should be doing this, or, oh, I should be doing that. Like this morning, my couch was a hot mess because that's where I was sitting working on things before she gets up. And everything got shoved over. She got to climb into my lap. And that's what it was. Like, the world stopped outside of her sitting on my lap with her very long legs. So, yeah.
Well, it comes down to prioritizing your time and communicating those boundaries, right? I mean, really, when you really think about it, and what I've seen in you, I mean, I have had the privilege of watching kind of behind the scenes for several years. You balance so beautifully working full time. And Katie works for an airline and she has to get up at some god awful hour, you know, to go to work. And she was still getting up, dedicated to her business enough and dedicated to being a mom enough and being present with her child enough to get up at an even more ungodly hour so that she could get some stuff done before Amelia got up, before everybody had to be where they needed to be, and really prioritizing her time around the days that she had her child and the days she didn't have her child so that she could be present with her kid when she was with her, like on her on days, on her mom days, right? Yeah. And really what we work together on, and what Katie has really instilled in her life on her own, is really great boundaries around what she's available for during what time of the day or week, and managing her time. Like, it really comes down to prioritizing. Like I said a minute ago, we always have time for the things we prioritize. So it's so important that we're always, and Katie's a really good example of this, figuring out what we want that end goal to be, working backwards, what needs to happen, and not just what would I like to have happen, but what actually has to get done to make this happen. And it's not about bare minimums either. I think Katie and I had many discussions about this. It's not about having it perfect. It's not about it being bare minimum. It's about what is the most effective way that I can get this done without overcomplicating it, that's going to get the job done, right? Because I think a lot of the time, especially in business, you know, and it's not to, you really can't fault us, right? Because there's all these mentors and coaches and things online saying that you have to do this and you have to have this funnel and it has to look this way and it has to be set up this way and it has to have this many steps or it has to be this priced at this or it has to fall in these categories or whatever it may be. And that's fine and good, for them. But the thing is, for a lot of us moms, it's not that black and white because we have other things going on. We have, like you say, even when your daughter's not with you, I know when there are things going on in her life, because there's always something going on, there's quotes that say, give everybody grace because everybody's going through something. Literally everybody is going through something, right? And as moms, I think we have it that much harder because we're not only dealing with our own stuff, but we're also dealing with our kids' stuff, right? And I mean, I don't know how many people listening have left a partner and have a child in the mix, but that adds a whole new layer and level, right? Because now you're co-parenting. Now you're trying to get along with somebody who you no longer have a relationship with, but you're biologically tied to, and all of these things, right? So let me ask you this. What are some of the biggest identity shifts women go through after divorce, both you and other people? And how does that impact their ability to show up as moms and as entrepreneurs?
I think it's not even just it is a whole person shift, honestly, because you are now in this situation where before you had a partner that you made decisions with, that you may have talked things over with, and now all of a sudden, wait a second, I am doing this alone. And that in itself. So I didn't ever really think that I had an issue with confidence. But let me tell you what happens when you have to start making decisions like, where are you going to live? What school? The school thing was still a co-parenting decision.
Right.
But the confidence, I can't even tell you how many, many conversations we had about the boundary settings. And let me tell you, the earlier you can understand, like a boundary now sounds like just some word that people throw out, but it is not. It is so much more than that. And it was taking that control back in my life.
Right.
And then, okay, what is this going to look like now? Because it's obviously not what I thought it was going to be, because,
that's all changed.
Yeah. I spend half the week with my daughter and half the week without her. And these people that say, or this is what I want to say to you, as a mother, as a business owner, if you say you don't have time, you better look at where you're spending your time, right?
Amen.
I caught myself this morning. Like, I am getting, and it's not like one size fits all. Once you figure out your time blocking and stuff like that, let me tell you, then you change it. Because I was spending the time that she was gone with her dad, I was spending, and here's the funny part, I have another business that's supplementally income for my coaching business as that grows. So I'm transitioning away from that. But I would get, okay, here comes the real deal. On my work days, I am up at 3 a.m. I come home from work by 4:30 p.m. By that time, it is grab something to eat. And that's where a whole nother conversation comes in about food prep, things like that, because you don't want to, like, to me, that was a waste of time if I got to cook something, unless I'm cooking it for the whole week, which I've done that before. So the 3.5 days that I didn't have her, I was coming home, working on this other business from 4:30 to 7:30. And then at 7:30 getting ready, because then I was going to be in bed by 8. And she got a phone call, a video chat to say goodnight in the meantime, right? And I'm like, is this truly making my business move forward? So then I was like, you know what? The women that I want to help are not necessarily off on Thursdays or Fridays during the day, right?
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I got to change something here. And I am an extroverted person, so I needed some more. It was kind of like coming back out of the cocoon from life, I think. So I went to a perimenopause talk and made connections there. I have been to this one is funny to me because a Wine Women and Wealth, which was put on by real estate agents and lenders. And now this group because at first I was like, what is this really going to have to do with divorced women? And oh my gosh. Yeah. They're like, oh, I know someone. We have these connections. I want to be able, and my business has really just started to explode from that. But that was taking that time and shifting it. So now the things that I was doing, say like on that Tuesday night, I'm now putting them into a Thursday or Friday because those are my corporate job days off. Amelia's in school or at her summer camp, and it is realigning and it's creating this energy that is a lot different. But when you're creating from alignment and not desperation, it's funny because I'm in some different groups, like all of us are, right, to support our businesses and stuff. And I was having a meetup with one of the ladies in my group, and I was like, this sounds like where I was a little while ago, and I was like, okay, I want to be supportive, but I don't know how to support like right where I'm at. So it'll have a conversation later down the road, but it is interesting when you see yourself reflected back at, and oh, that was me, 6 months ago or whatever that is.
Yeah. And it's a nice experience to see that and to have the awareness to know that that's where you were, and to be able to look now at the gap. And like we were talking about at the beginning, take the time to really, good for me for being so removed now from that. And not to say it's better or worse or not. It's just, there's an evolution of, like you're saying, of getting divorced and then moving into what that looks like now, and then finding yourself again. And like you said, becoming a whole new person, because I watched you become a whole new person in the best ways possible. And that was really cool. So obviously, and you just touched on it, but obviously we know that surrounding ourselves with the right tribe can really help us move forward, not only socially and emotionally, but the network, right? So what have you seen? Why is this so critical, especially after divorce or during reinvention seasons?
Because you feel like you're alone when you're going through it. And it's like, when all reality is you are not alone in the situation. Or, just like the example of the Wine Women and Wealth, it was, I stood up and gave my introduction, and the amount of people around you that are shaking their head, yes, I've been there, I've done that, whether it's leaving, whether it's been a marriage or it is a relationship or whatever, but having somebody, even if they just listen, because we are social creatures. That's what we're meant to do. We're not meant to go through life alone. And we have to take care of ourselves and remove that like grief and that shame, or at least find a place, because that doesn't happen overnight. I don't even know how long it took me to get past that. I'm 4 years post-separation this summer, and I feel like, I don't know, in the last 6 months, something really happened that was just like, oh, I can do this. I can do all these things. And I finally figured out that I was leading like this double life too. because I have my corporate job over here, I have my coaching business over here, and I wasn't mixing the two very much, even though what I do in my corporate job really is coaching as well.
Right.
But it's, you know, I think this is normal life, that people get up at, dark 30 and go to bed at 8 p.m. and do all these other things. And I'm like, I don't know. And then I start telling them, oh yeah, I did this speaking thing. And, I co-authored a book, and they're like, where do you find
when did you do that?
And it just makes me chuckle, because I'm like, well, that's just part of life, when other people are like, oh, I can't even stand, they barely make it through our 10.5-hour day. And, then they're just so exhausted. I'm like, you need to find something that lights your fire.
Yeah.
But that's not for everyone either, though, right? Or everyone would be an entrepreneur and a little crazy in that process.
Entrepreneur is definitely a species of its own. Definitely. Not everybody is wired to be an entrepreneur, but everybody is wired to have something that lights them up. So that could be a passion too. It could be, maybe you love to sew, maybe you love to paint, maybe you love to go thrifting, maybe you love to write poetry, maybe you are into bird watching, like whatever it is, right? Something that lights you up. And I think the more people that have things that light them up, the better the world will be, right? Because it's too many people are stuck in the, I have to work, 9 to 5 even, and then they spend their weekend, they spend Saturday running errands, they spend Sunday dreading Monday, and they're like, their whole life is just get up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed. And then they do the same thing over and over and over again. And I used to be one of those people. until I discovered, I got the gateway drug with network marketing when I was on maternity leave with my son. And then, that spurred my entrepreneurial journey. But at one point I did have to go back to work full time. I took a maternity leave contract in an admin position. And I can relate to, and I think that's actually how we connected, as I was sharing this process in one of the Facebook groups. And I was saying, you can still build your business while you're working full time. And I remember I just was saying, I just get up really early because I have tried all the things. I've tried staying up late. I've tried fitting it in during nap, and I've tried, and it just doesn't work. I have to get up and spend my good decision-making hours, my sharp-witted thinking on myself and my business before anybody disrupts me. So I started getting up at 4, and people were like, that's mental. And I said, look, and Katie, you can attest to this. It's not so much what time you get up. It's what time you go to bed and what your bedtime routine and how you set yourself up for a good sleep. That's what matters.
Yeah. Funny story about that. I know that I do really well with like 7 hours of sleep. I have not really tested less than that in a while. Well, maybe when I was dating, but that's a different podcast. So,
you'll have to come back.
Yeah, that's a whole different world. But I went to the networking event the other night, and I was the one who brought the snacks. So I kind of already had it prepared in my head that I got there a little bit earlier. I was going to be there a little bit later. But I look up, it's supposed to go from 6 to like 7:30. And I looked up and I was like, oh my gosh, I turn into a pumpkin at 9 o'clock and I'm not home. And so it was funny because I already had myself like mentally set up. Then the next day, it's funny because in my schedule, I am learning to also allow myself to rest when I need it. And I have not been that person in the past. Like if I need to, last weekend, I was at a mastermind with some amazing people, and I came away from that and I thought my head was going to explode, and I needed some downtime after that. And literally, I feel like you go from, okay, all this stuff is in my head, but now I'm back at home and I'm supposed to jump right back into this routine that I have. And I'm like, it has literally taken me a couple of days to like reset. And make those thoughts and everything that was in my head come into more of an alignment of what's going to take me forward. But it's just like, I don't rock that 7-hour boat too often.
No, and it's funny because when I was juggling all of those things, I found that I needed about 6.5 hours of sleep. And just for anybody who's curious, how you determine how much sleep you need is if you're ever given the luxury where you don't need to set an alarm for several days in a row. Like they say, I don't know who they is, but I read some studies that said the best way to tell how much sleep you need personally is to, for a week, if you can, go to bed at the same time and then see what time you wake up naturally without an alarm. And then generally by day 5, 6, 7, your body has decided kind of what the pattern routine needs to be. So for me, that was 6.5 hours at the time. I think now it might be a little bit more, but also right now too, it adjusts with your season, because right now, personally, I'm going through a really busy phase in my business. There's 3 weeks left of school here in Canada right now at the time of recording. It's the beginning of June. We've got 3 weeks left of school. I am powering through recording 25 podcast episodes over a total of about 6 weeks or so, because I want to have my content created for the summer so that I can be present with my son. So that, I mean, there will be things that I need to do over the summer business wise, but those are especially podcast episodes, because these are things that need to be scheduled, right? So they're way less flexible than, say, repurposing the content, which I can kind of do when I have time, because summer is supposed to be for my son and he's had kind of a rough school year this year. So I really want to make sure that we kind of, I guess I won't be able to make up for it, but I really want to make sure he has a good summer and he knows that I'm dedicated to him, right? Because actions speak louder than words, and our kids are always watching. And if you say your business is not as important as your kid, but then you're constantly saying, I can't do it, I'm busy, this, that, the next thing,
Yeah.
Even if they don't consciously understand what's happening, their subconscious does understand. And then they're going to grow up and then they're going to be talking to their coach or therapist about how their parent never had time for them because they prioritized their business. And so we don't want that. And that leads so beautifully into something that you said in your guest application intake form. You said being a present mom isn't about quantity, it's about quality. And so can you just talk to that a little bit for us?
That is something that is so near and dear to my heart. And I have to give myself some grace in this regard, because let's just go back to the beginning of the separation. Okay. I don't know why the court systems and people, and this goes back to your tribe too, and having a great tribe, you are expected to make some of the most life-changing decisions, not only for yourself, but for your child. I don't know about any of you, but me, when I'm in an emotional state, I don't necessarily make the best decisions. Okay? So I have to give myself grace in the fact that I was just trying to hold it together then.
Right. Yes.
And I have to be okay with, hey, I'm not the same mom today that I was 4 years ago.
That's true.
And sometimes I'm like, if I was the mom that I am now, then, and you don't do that. Okay. That's what I'm going to say about that.
You could spend all day doing that. And Katie, we've had conversations about this, because a lot of the work that I do for myself and for my clients revolves around subconscious programming, right? As you remember. And so the more that you go down that rabbit hole of knowing how the subconscious works and how the programming works and how your own blueprint is created and all of that, you can't help but go, oh my God, I messed up here and I said this and I shouldn't have done that. And oh my God, if I knew what I know now, back when my son was only 2, we would be in a different situation now and all this. But you can't do that. Like you're saying, you cannot do that. You have to just focus on where you are now and recognize that we're all just doing the best we can. We've always been doing the best we can. I read a quote one time that said, if you're worried about being a good mom, you already are a good mom. because only good moms would be worried about being a good mom.
Kind of like cleaning the house before the house cleaner comes, you know, like what is, yeah. So with that, there was a lot of times in the beginning, it really was a lot of trial and error. And that's part of why the blueprint is created, because you shouldn't have to be Googling, YouTubing. You should have like the one-stop shop that can help you with these things, because it does take setting those boundaries with yourself. And I think that comes before anybody else.
Yes,
keeping the promises to yourself. Yeah. Because once you start doing that, and you also have to just trust that, hey, it is okay. And this is kind of fun that I'm more aware of these things happening now, but this is a prime example. We ended the last week of school, in fact, when we were originally supposed to record, and we shared strep throat and stayed home for, like 4 days together. I did not feel guilty about those 4 days, because I knew somehow the time would open up and I would be able to get done with the things that I wanted to and needed to get done. And even like into this week, coming back from a mastermind, doing that transition from one house to another, you have to learn to kind of switch things around. And I know for some people it's hard to just go with the flow, because originally, I'll tell you, and I know Danielle and I have both had some of this, like, oh, I could be doing this and this and this right now, instead of just being present.
Yeah.
We have something that has, from almost the first week of this, us moving into a new place and stuff, Friday nights became our movie nights. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, there were some rules about that. And the rules I made for myself. Nobody said this is how you have to do it. Okay. I had a 4-year-old at that time. I was not picking up my phone. Mm-hmm. It's very rare that I would pick up my phone or look at anything or stuff, because I wanted her to know that was her time. Yeah. Even if we were just watching a movie, right? And something more recently that I've implemented is, and I heard this somewhere. I wish I could remember who I heard this from. I think it was a psychologist, but it's called the 3, 3, and 3. So 3 minutes with her when she first wakes up in the morning, 3 minutes when she comes home from school or whatever she's been doing, and then 3 minutes before bed. And that has made a huge difference. But I also recognize that my child is a lot different than others, because she will just straight up ask you if she needs a hug. I don't know a whole lot of 7-year-olds that will just be like, I need a hug. Or, I miss my dad, things like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but that's because of the work that you've been doing, that you have such an emotionally intelligent child, right? And I'm going to toot my own horn for a second too. I get that all the time. We get comments from Dominic's teachers and support caseworkers, and he needs a little bit of extra help at school. So the support teachers and the principal, even, they say he's always honest and he's very emotionally intelligent. Like, he is one of the most caring and empathetic kids in the class, in the school, I think, even. And I'm very proud of that, because, no matter what his grades look like, or his, report card looks like, or how much he's struggling with this or that or whatever, you can't teach necessarily, not in school, they don't teach emotional intelligence. I mean, it is getting better. I will definitely say it's getting better.
Oh, yeah.
When we were in school, I mean, there was none of that. Like, I learned how to identify my emotions when my son brought home an emotion wheel from kindergarten. So it's getting better. It is getting better. But, you know, a lot of the things, like the person that he's becoming, the person that your daughter is, you can't teach people that, right? That is it, largely by watching their parents do that work, right? And we need to remind ourselves that, you know, they are who they are because of us, right? Because you see other kids running around and some of them are a little, I'm not even going to say the word. But you know that that's because of something that's going on at home. Right. And I'm not saying my child is a perfect angel either. Like he got in trouble for fighting the other day. I got a call from the principal and the principal, he's like, oh, you know, when we're friends with the principal. So it was nice. It wasn't like intimidating, but he's like, I've got Dominic in my office. I thought, oh God.
Now what?
So he's like, well, he's honest. You know, he admitted that he started it. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, whatever. Okay, good. So he dealt with it and it was fine. And whatever. So I'm just saying he's not perfect. Okay. But we need to give ourselves more credit because it is in that quality time that we're spending with our kids and letting them know that they're important to us and letting them see that they are a priority for us, that they become the little humans that they are. Right. So what are some of your favorite mindset shifts or exercises for rebuilding confidence after it's been shaken up, whether from divorce or burnout or just kind of feeling lost in motherhood?
Ooh, that's you know, do we have a couple more hours for that? Well, and I think honestly, some of the most simple steps, and I was actually doing part of this before the divorce. So it's interesting how it's kind of evolved and changed because I do now. I'm going to preface this by I try to do this every morning. Now, at 3 a.m., it does not always happen that way. But I try to do some intention setting for the day, a short meditation, gratitude, and I am statements. And let me tell you something that is super powerful with the I am statements. If you just ask your child, say, hey, this is what I'm doing. What do you think about this? You gotta, maybe I should give you the emotional disclaimer right here. Because for one, it's gonna be the most honest and the most real. And I was not prepared for what my child said. I mean, if you have a funny one, it might not be as emotionally jarring, but my daughter was like, I asked her, I said, so what would you add to this? Because I have a pretty good sized paper in my walk-in closet. So I see it every single day. And it has these things handwritten on it. And I said, well, what do you think should I add something to it? What do you think is different? And she goes, you should add, I am beautiful and I am bold. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, that's how she sees me.
I love that. And I love that you're still doing those practices. I mean, you started doing those back with me and when
that was prior to the divorce.
Yeah. And so I love that. And so I love that you've been getting your daughter to do them with you. And I remember you even sharing that you guys made vision boards together and she was you walked in on her doing her own gratitude list and all these things. So this is the power of doing these things that are going to better you and how it ripples to your kids, right? Because if it's just part of your everyday thing, it's not a weird thing. And your kids don't think it's weird and they think it's a normal thing. And then they start doing it themselves. Like I've walked in on Dominic, he says, I'm meditating, or wants to write in his gratitude journal or, whatever. Yeah. And it's like, this is so fantastic. It, of course, like you say, emotional disclaimer, because it makes me want to weep when I walk in on him meditating, it's like, what? So yeah, it's just so good. But yeah, that's great. Like keep in mind that your kids are watching you and that when you involve them in what's happening, especially in the personal development things, like no amount of awareness or mindfulness is going to hurt them in any way, shape, or form. It's only going to make them a better human being in in general, now and in the future.
Yes.
Right. So I think entrepreneurship it played a big part in your kind of healing journey, watching you shift your attention onto something that was so empowering. So how has entrepreneurship helped you heal, reclaim your voice, and support other women? And what would you say to someone who's scared to start over again?
Well, I'll be honest with you, like entrepreneurship has kind of been in my blood from the time I was young, because I was that kid that was out selling wrapping paper. I tried, and it's interesting when you reflect back on your life and how it's unfolded. So I did that. I did Pampered Chef. I did Mary Kay. I did some other things as well.
Yeah.
But nothing ever seemed to really fit together.
Mm.
And my life events is what made things come together, between the grief of loss of loved ones and then of the marriage. And I was just like, other people shouldn't feel like they have to do this alone.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to work and put on a brave face. The people who worked in my office were the ones that may have known that I was going through a divorce. But when other people were coming and going, I had somebody just maybe like a year ago. She goes, "Katie, how come I didn't know this?" And I was like, I mean, I wasn't out blasting my business everywhere either, because that's not how we wanted to treat each other in this process. But when you make the child or children a priority, all the other crazy stuff between you and the ex doesn't matter.
Right.
I today respond to different situations with co-parenting very differently.
I can attest to that. That is true. That is true.
In the beginning, I remember being so angry. And I'm not an angry person, but there were times that I was just like, I cannot believe. And sometimes it's just how, or yeah. And now this yesterday, and I know that I talk a lot about my child, but she's a part of my life and my business. She really is. But yesterday we seemed to both be having a hard time. And I was kind of just like, And then I was like, why is she being such a little sassy pants? That's not her normal. Then what came next was a little mind-blowing for me. I said, what is going on? And she goes, I said, why do you not seem like yourself right now? She goes, I'm kind of angry, but not really, because I'm actually sad. The anger is just the outward of the sadness. What?
She's 7.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah. So I'm like, what is causing you? And this is after I'd already had my own attitude adjustment in the dentist chair, going, what is going on with me?
Right.
And so I it goes back to, like, we've been talking, that awareness. And then I checked myself, but when she said that, and I was like, well, what's causing you to be so sad? And she missed her dad. That's okay. She's been having a lot of extra time with him.
Right.
Like, too, which is, she doesn't get that. And then last night she goes, I need you to come be part of this family hug, because I miss his big hugs, his bear hugs. Her father is a large human. I am a tiny human. So, our hugs, I am a mom hug and he's like a true bear hug, but just being able to listen. And not only does that translate from our children, but for me, that's clients as well.
Right.
Because when something appears one way, that doesn't always necessarily mean that's what's really, it could be a cover up for something else. And sometimes you do just need to talk about those things before you're aware of moving on.
Yes, 100%. Almost always, I find, almost always, especially with, well, not even especially with kids, just everybody. The emotion or the outward actions you see are rooted somewhere in something else. And it's almost always fear, sadness, and even anger is rooted in fear, right? Anger is rooted in fear. And like you say, frustration for her and anger with her was rooted in the sadness yesterday. But the fact that you know, and I'm guilty of this too. We'll get into it. And I'm just like, oh, hang on a minute. Obviously, whatever we're arguing about is not actually what the problem is. So let's just back up. Did something happen at school? What's bothering you? Are you upset about something? And some of the time, I don't know how it is with Amelia, but with my son, sometimes I think what actually happens is he will snap at me, for example, and then he feels bad or he's embarrassed, but he doesn't want to admit that he feels bad or embarrassed. So he keeps on and we get into a fight. And I go, I think really what's happening here is you feel bad for the way you reacted. And if I stop and give you an opportunity to go back and cancel, clear, delete, and say what you would now prefer to say now that you've thought about it, would that make you feel better? And he says, yes. I said, okay, we'll just cancel, clear, delete it. Let's go back. What would you prefer to say? And then, of course, it goes on a better trajectory, right? But this is something that comes with awareness. And even, I mean, like I say, I am not perfect. I've been doing this for years and years and years, and I still will catch myself starting to get into it with him and go, hang on a minute. No, this is not, you know, this is not necessary. Or realizing that, okay, you know what? My energy is a little bit frantic because I've had a really busy day and I didn't give myself, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just unwind before I went to get him from school, for example.
Yep.
Like the other day, I in hindsight should have packed up 5 minutes sooner, had a 5-minute, just breathe for 5 minutes and then gone and get him from school. Right. I had kind of a stressful afternoon and it ended up being fine. But my point is, like, it's just this awareness, right? And a lot of the time, unfortunately, we learn from making the mistakes. And actually, if anybody's read the book A Course in Miracles, it's supposed to be a channeled message from Jesus himself. And the message is that we have to learn through making mistakes. That's how you learn. If you just do it right the first time, there's no comparative, right? The contrast creates the clarity. So making the mistake is like, you realize, okay, I don't like the way this feels. I'm going to go about it a different way next time. And then so the next time something like that comes up, you can go, hang on a minute. This is what happened last time. That didn't feel good. And let's do it again. And the beautiful thing about it is once you, and Katie can attest to this, once you practice this, that whole process of course correction can happen in a matter of seconds. Like it's almost like you don't even realize it's happening.
Well, I was just thinking of that as you were talking about that, how you really were a vital point of me being able to recognize some of those patterns and now being able to respond so differently, because it's not only it can be in your marriage. It can be in any kind, a friendship, work relationships, and it's very interesting when you start changing your response, how the other person responds, because it's just like, sometimes they don't know what to do with you.
Well, exactly. And I think a lot of that is rooted in developing your confidence and knowing that you do know more than you think you do, and you can give yourself more credit. So tell me, if listeners are like, I need more of Katie. I know you've got a survival guide to share. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So the survival guide really goes through regaining some of that confidence. And there's also a part in it that is about our time, because there's two things kind of that happen when you're going through a divorce. And this is for men or women, right? You either have all of this time because your child or children are with the other parent now, or you don't have any time because you have them full time.
Right.
Right. And some people are just content doing nothing without the children. But if you're on the entrepreneur side of that, you got to figure your stuff out. And the time portion of that, I mean, Danielle and I have worked through so much of that as well. So there's a time portion in there. There's definitely boundaries in there. You guys, I felt like I was 40 years. I don't even care to tell my age. I felt like I was 40. And no, I'm not 40, but I felt like I was 40 years old, 40 plus maybe, when I started even really understanding what a boundary was. And I look back now, I will be 47 this year, but I didn't have boundaries with my family. If my parents wanted to show up where I lived, they just showed up. Not exactly the best. You know, my corporate job, I would answer emails at all hours of the day. If they needed something, I was the person that would do it because they knew they could count on me. And these are all examples of what not to do, right?
Right.
And then I had my own family, my daughter, a husband at the time, and I still continued not to have those boundaries. So what happened is I was not taking care of myself first. And society has been really good about if you're taking care of yourself first, you're selfish.
Yes, especially moms, because how dare you? You've got things to do.
Guess what? This 4 hours that she's at summer camp is amazing for me. So then when I show up to pick her up here in a little bit, she gets the full version of me. And so there's that portion. I have those boundaries with myself for sure. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that boundary is going to bed at a certain time.
100%.
And, you know, let me tell you, the sooner you can learn the boundary portion, it's probably a whole lot easier than being like older in life and going, what in the world? How did I not get this? But, you know, this is what's interesting to me in life. And I see how people can get caught up in cults and things like that. Because if you were only taught one way growing up, you just think that's how it is.
Right.
That's how it is for everybody, right? Then you get out into the big wide world, if you dare venture out there, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's not how it is. And you're like rediscovering your whole self. And that is what that is through divorce, because you now have a new identity. I can't say this for everyone, but I am just now. I've been on dates. Oh yeah, that's a whole nother. I have been on dates. I think sometimes, I'm ready for a relationship. And I truly believe that I am, but that's not my focus right now.
Right.
My focus is my business and being able to show up not only for myself with confidence, but for my daughter. Am I going to continue to make mistakes? Yeah, that's part of life. But when we can repair and rebuild and move forward, that's what we're in. We're in that metamorphosis butterfly after a divorce. You really go through. And even if people are in a situation where they are better off than being in the marriage as far as the way they were treated and stuff, there's still some inner work that needs to be done so that you don't go through the same cycle with the next relationship.
Right. 100%. 100%. This has been so helpful. I hope that everybody listening has gotten something from this episode, and we would love it if you would leave a comment below or leave us a review for the podcast. And Katie, if there's one message or mindset shift that you want every woman listening to walk away with today, what would it be?
this moment in time does not define the rest of your life.
That's perfect. That's so perfect. I love it. What a great way to leave it. So today was such a reminder that reinvention is always possible. Whether you're navigating divorce, burnout, or just feeling like you've lost yourself in motherhood, Katie's journey shows us that healing, confidence, and freedom are always within reach. And I am so thankful that you were able to make it onto our episode today, Katie. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to everybody who's listening. We will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the School Hours CEO podcast. If you're ready to take what we talk about here and actually implement it into your business and your life, I've got 3 powerful ways we can work together. First, if you're ready for high-level support and accountability, my one-to-one coaching is where we go deep into restructure your time, business, and energy so you can scale sustainably without sacrificing your life. If you want a quick clarity check, grab my audit offer. This is where we break down your current workload, to-do list, projects, and goals so we can see exactly what's keeping you stuck and what you need to shift right away for real change. And if you're craving structure, start with my 20-hour workweek blueprint and implementation challenge. It's a step-by-step roadmap to finally get more done in less time while creating more space for what actually matters. All the links are waiting for you in the description box. Go check them out and choose the next step that feels right for you. Remember, you don't have to do it alone. You can work smarter, not harder, and I can help you get there. See you in the next episode.